a few things to touch on. One is your stint as press secretary for Pranab Mukherjee, and even before that, I think you were part of the external affairs team for Atalji's government. So a quick, if you can quickly touch upon the highlights of that. And I heard there was a very funny incident where somebody left a gun somewhere, and you're going to love this.
I think my batchmate and friend Vikas Swareep is here. Please give him a big hand of welcome.
Hi, Vikas.
He's a
Thank you
well-known
for being
author.
here.
Our diplomatic life is full of funny incidents, but we can't tell out in public all those incidents because many of them are very sensitive. Narayan mentioned I was director in the External Affairs Minister's office when Mr. Yashwant Sinha was minister, and then very briefly when Mr. Natwar Singh came in under the UPA government. In fact, Vikas succeeded me in that position. And I was also press secretary to President Pranab Mukherjee for 5 years. Beyond that, as diplomats in various missions, everywhere we have presidents, prime ministers. We have presidents, prime ministers, senior dignitaries who come from India, and it becomes our responsibility to look after them. And the incident which Narayan is referring to happened during one of our president's visit to China, where after the president's flight had taken off to return to India at the end of the visit, this was in Shanghai, suddenly we get a call from the air traffic control of Shanghai airport. I was given the responsibility of winding up the control room which the embassy sets up and making sure everything is cleared from the rooms. And then we were all to close down our operations and return to Beijing. Suddenly air traffic control calls and says there's an emergency message from the pilot. One of the security guards on board the flight, one of the personal security guards of the president, has forgotten his gun and all the bullets in China in his hotel room.
China of all places.
That's right. So this was a shock. This was an unusual incident. So immediately I and other people who were part of my team started going to all the rooms and looking at which room this security guard had stayed in. Since there was a large security contingent, we didn't know which room, so we had to search every room. And I was there with a Chinese woman staff of the hotel. In a room, the lady also helped search, and suddenly she picked up a pillow, and under the pillow there was a gun, and there was a revolver and 6 bullets. And the girl got so scared that she shouted out saying, "Ayo!" Very similar to our own "Ayo." So then we managed to retrieve the gun and 6 bullets. And what do you do with a gun and 6 bullets in China? All of us diplomats are not supposed to be handling arms. And how do you bring it back to India? Once again, it has been left behind, but the legal process involved in bringing it behind is so complex, and it required so much permissions from the Chinese, etc., that it would have been a nightmare. The only alternative which was then available to us was to go, the officers of the Chinese, the Ministry of External Affairs protocol was there with us. So we had to be honest with them. And anyway, the air traffic control had got to know that a gun and bullets is left behind. So we told them, look, this has happened. We are really sorry. This was unintended. Somebody has goofed up badly. What do we do with this? And the so-called enemy country, the protocol department of Chinese Foreign Ministry was so friendly and helpful. They said, don't worry, put it in the briefcase of the ambassador. When the ambassador goes through security from Shanghai to Beijing, he will not be frisked. His briefcase will not be opened. So they said, we won't tell anyone. You don't tell anyone. Quietly put it in the ambassador. The ambassador was most unhappy. He didn't like the idea of carrying a gun and bullets for some policeman in Delhi. But anyway, that was the only way to solve the problem. So we smuggled a gun and 6 bullets from Shanghai to Beijing through security. And again, bringing it back to India was also a very difficult task. But similarly, when the ambassador traveled to Delhi, once again, because he was not frisked, he carried it in his briefcase and brought it back to Delhi. Honestly, I have no idea whether any action was taken against that person at all. but sometimes this is what Indian government works like. As an ex-government servant, I'll say.
So much to talk about, but I think one is Netherlands and the room for rivers, because it was a big help when the floods came and hit Kerala. That was a model that Venu sir had also, kind of proposed. And the next one, I will combine this because of time paucity, is a stint he had learned to be a lawyer, right? And he spent time at the ICJ. So there's Kulbhushan Yadav that comes into the picture. There is the Enrique Lexi case also that comes into the picture, I guess.
Let me briefly talk about Room for the River. In 2018, when the biggest floods in 100 years happened in Kerala, I was India's ambassador to Netherlands. The Netherlands is considered the world's leader in water management. For centuries, they have been fighting floods. And even when the US is confronted with a hurricane or a typhoon, they look to Dutch experts for help. So what I did at the time was to write first an article in Manorama and then a book called What We Can Learn from the Dutch, Rebuilding Kerala Post-Floods 2018, where I wrote about Dutch water management practices and how it could be relevant for Kerala, how it could be brought to Kerala. I also intervened with the permission of the Kerala government and the Ministry of External Affairs with the Dutch government, and had the Dutch government send a team of water experts to come to Kerala, work with the Kerala government to look at what are the long-term steps that the Kerala government can take. Following this, the Kerala Chief Minister, again with my encouragement, decided to visit Netherlands and come and see what the Dutch do. And one of the most important innovations that the Dutch do is Room for the River. And after that, the Kerala government has implemented, with World Bank assistance, a project called Room for Pamba. Now, what is the Room for the River? For any of you who know about Netherlands, the traditional practice of fighting floods was to build what is called dikes or walls to try and prevent water from coming into the land. 1/3 of the Netherlands is below the water level. And 3 major rivers of Europe all drain into the ocean in Netherlands. So they are extremely prone to floods. But instead of dikes, as the Dutch progress, they realized that building walls will never be a solution for floods. What you need to do is to learn to live with water, learn to build with nature, and make room for the river. When there is a flood, when there is too much water, when there is extremely heavy rain, you must create areas, you must create alternative channels into which the water can flow temporarily, and when the flood is over, the water can flow out. So this is a philosophy which is today accepted across the world. Dutch experts have been working with the Kerala government. The Kerala government has unveiled some projects to implement it. But I keep everybody, whenever there is a flood, I get calls and the media keeps saying that instead of room for the river, now we have the river in the room and there is flooding all over Kerala. The reality is flood control, flood resilience cannot be done overnight. It's a long-term project. And ultimately, Dutch expertise can only advise the Kerala government. It is for the Kerala government to implement it. It is for the Kerala government to take all the steps necessary to follow up and make it a reality here. And that is where we have a lot more work to do.
Venu sir, a bit on the ICJ part also. Just
Well,
2 lines maybe.
When I was in the International Court of Justice, I was part of 2 very important cases. I was part of the legal team. One was the Kulbhushan Jadhav case, which most of you would have watched on television. Mr. Harish Salve was our leading counsel who made the arguments on behalf of India. India won the case, and this is the first time India had taken a case to the ICJ. The ICJ said Pakistan was wrong and they should conduct a retrial of Kulbhushan Jadhav. It was a big victory for India in international law, but considering the weakness of international law, Jadhav continues to be in a jail in Pakistan, and freeing him is going to happen only if there is a political deal between India and Pakistan. The other big case with the Kerala connection was the Enrique Lexi case, which involved shooting of fishermen in Kerala, off the coast of Kerala, by Italian Marines. This is a case which had dragged off very long, and finally it was in the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague, after arguments by a legal team with which I was also part, that a final settlement was arrived at, and the judgment of the PCA was accepted by both Italy and India.
Fantastic. So one more regarding your thoughts on the current scenario of the world, right? And in line with our theme, like Kerala, India, and the world. So possibly the governance in Kerala and the governance in India, in terms of policies, etc., that we had talked about briefly, and also the world possibly touching on the prominent ones like the US, China, Pakistan.
I don't know how I can do justice to all this, but let me just say that there is an Arabic word called fawda. It is in fact a very popular Israeli television series which talks about the Palestine issue. The fawda means chaos. So right now there is a new world disorder rather than an order. There is great chaos, great uncertainty, great unpredictability, to a large extent aggravated by President Trump coming to office. Trump 2.0, the first 2 weeks and a little more, has shown how many actions he has taken, for example, withdrawing from WHO, withdrawing from the Paris Agreement, and his most recent statement saying that Gaza will be turned into a Riviera for the Middle East is so ridiculous that we should brace ourselves, we should anticipate things to get much worse. There is going to be continued conflict, continued tensions, terrorism. Our foreign minister himself was asked the question as to what is the outlook that he sees for the world, and he said it's a very grim situation. So huge headwinds are blowing all around us. India's neighborhood in particular is very troubled. We have a large number of governments which are very hostile to India at this point. Our problems with Pakistan remain. Our problems with China, the relations are improving, but the problems haven't gone away. We still need to fix. So I see large challenges on the foreign policy front for the Indian government at this point.
I would also like to say that possibly, a lot of the machines, everything can be around, but there are people who are at the crux of making those decisions at that particular point of time. It's high pressure, intense situations, and it totally depends on their prerogatives and all the information they have.
Please remember that in almost all the Gulf countries, you do not have democracy. You do not have a free press. You do not have NGOs. If a person has a problem, they do not have anyone locally to turn to except the consulate and except the embassy. The very first week I landed there, I was woken up at night by the security guard in my consulate calling me and saying, a taxi driver has sort of left a woman at our doorstep who's seeking help. What do I do with her? And this is around 12 o'clock at night. A woman who was victim to human trafficking, a Malayali woman who had been taken from Kerala to Dubai and was pushed into a prostitution racket, had jumped through a window, escaped from the traffickers, and was running on the street with these traffickers chasing her. When a taxi driver saw this, stopped, put her into the taxi, took her to safety, took her away from these people pursuing her, but then neither the woman nor the taxi driver knew what to do with her. And he straight away brought her to the Indian consulate because that is the only reference point. If somebody is in distress, go to the Indian consulate. Indian consulates, government departments, government servants, we are not geared to handle issues like trafficking, especially in a foreign country. In India, within India, you have the police, you have various social agencies, you have NGOs, you have local politicians, you can find solutions. So there, the man on the spot, the diplomat, in this case, me as the Consul General, I had to innovate. I had to find solutions which, for problems which you don't find in anywhere else in the world. And so the consulate started a shelter for women, and even it was an apartment next door. The woman has run away with nothing. So you have to start providing her essential clothes, essential toiletries. You have to identify where she is from. Her passport is gone. It is with the traffickers. You have to recreate a passport for her. You have to send her back to India Those days, we didn't have the kind of funds which is available today to our embassies to meet with emergency requirements like that. And then on top of all this, the woman doesn't want anybody to know. Nobody who goes to the Gulf and is a victim to trafficking wants their family back home, their neighbors back home, their friends back home to know that they were a victim of trafficking. In fact, there is a story that former Chief Minister Umanjandi came to Bahrain or Qatar and got a similar woman rescued and sent her back. And the traffickers were waiting at the airport for her to come back and immediately caught her, put her on the next flight and sent her back again. And this is very possible. When I was there, one of the visitors I had was Mr. Kodiyeri Balakrishnan, who was Home Minister at that time. I brought him to the consulate. We had about a dozen women with various complaints who had run away from their homes, taking shelter in that apartment which the consulate had created as a rescue home. We got Kodiyeri Balakrishnan to interact with them, and after coming back, he instructed that every woman being sent back by the consulate will be received by a woman police officer. She will ensure that the victim is taken to her home, whichever village she comes from, and handed over to her family, and only then the police's responsibility ends. But still, there is absolutely no way you can ensure that once again she doesn't go back.
Okay, thank you so much for those insights. And I think in winding up, I would sincerely like to thank you for the insights. Thank you for doing what you have done and you're still doing. And like I said, to all the diplomatic community, because like Venu sir said, this is the time of possibly a lot of chaos. And you need a lot of diplomacy to make sure that, rather than aggression, I would think, a lot of diplomacy is actually required to fix some of these problems for the world to be a better place for us and the next generations to come. So I thank you so much, and I open it up for questions.
Okay, so here's my question. So I was just asking ChatGPT, and I was thinking of I had a lot of questions, so I want to summarize it into one. Do you see potential for AI helping diplomats and government officials in legal decision making?
I think AI is coming into every aspect of our life. It is going to change our life dramatically. It already has started changing. Specifically in legal decision making, I do not know how it will help. I haven't thought about it. But clearly in drafting, it has made a huge difference. We have all struggled over speeches for ministers and senior bureaucrats on 1,000 different occasions. So speech writing has become very easy thanks to ChatGPT and various other tools. Research has become far better because of AI. Any topic that you want to know, you can research immediately, and you have far more sources which come, many alternatives which come. AI comes with too. There is a great deal of discussion on what will happen in AI in warfare. The Russia-Ukraine war already is a war of drones. And if artificial intelligence comes in, how much more damage will happen to the world? Correct. So it is a great boon and a support, but it's also a major risk and danger.
Thank you to the audience. Thank you very much. And thank you, Ambassador. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Now I invite Mr. Mahesh Mohan, General Manager, Sales and Marketing, Nikunjam Construction Private Limited, to give a very memento to Mr. Venu sir.